Joined by ESPN NFL senior reporter Jeremy Fowler. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
So let's start here, Jeremy. As far as the Niners are concerned, they've gotten so close. But how unique is it for a team? I know they haven't won the big one just quite yet. How unique is it for a team to sustain this level of success in this day and age in the NFL when, because of that success, they got a different coordinator every season? All those types of things. How unique is what the Niners are doing?
Well, it's unique. I wouldn't say it's unique from the vantage point of how they're built, right? Because when you have common dominators like Kyle Shanahan and like 7 to 8 real star players, like most teams just don't have that. They might have 3 or 2 or 4, but to have legitimate 7 or 8 guys that are top 10 at their position, that's hard to compete with. You know, like the Saints come to mind, even though they didn't win a ton of championships, but they always kind of had that when they had Drew Brees and they were rolling. So, so they have that's built in, and that gives them sort of a confidence. And you saw, like with the Ravens and with the Detroit Lions, they're really good teams, but they kind of folded under the pressure. Where San Fran's been through it enough where they're able to recover and win a game when the pressure's on. But it's pretty rare. I mean, it's hard enough to get to 1, let alone 3.
On the note of being plucked, the Niners coaching staff and their players and such, there was a report the other day from ESPN Seth Wickershams about NFL owners allegedly being upset that the Niners had been so successful with their minority coaching and more specifically getting the compensatory picks for that. What are your thoughts on that? And I mean, is that the Niners' fault?
No, it's definitely not the Niners' fault. I mean, they've got a hot tree of successful people. Like they have a pipeline, so it's hard to knock that. So the way the chips have fallen, you know, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the Vikings GM 2 years ago, nobody really saw him as a big name, but very smart guy in a smart organization. You get an opportunity, you knock out the interview, you get a job. So I think it was. I don't know the exact nature of the complaints, but I'm not surprised because owners see that and be like, okay, did they really need a gazillion third-round picks?
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, is that really necessary? I could see that complaint in that way. Maybe some venting of frustration, but I don't think anything's going to come from it.
Yeah, talking to Jeremy Fowler, ESPN NFL senior reporter. Jeremy, we know how much Niner fans want this championship. You know, the heartbreak even with Shanahan, before Shanahan. How important is it, I guess, from the national narrative standpoint, for Shanahan to get it done when the NFC, let's be honest, was a little bit down this season? And I keep picking against Mahomes just because I just feel like if you aren't going to do it this season, I don't know when you're going to do it. How important is it for Shanahan to get this done?
Well, it's important. There's no doubt about it. It's because this is when legacies are shaped, right? And if he doesn't win this one, then it's kind of like, okay, well, when's the time if it's going to happen? But you look at the other side of the field with Andy Reid. Kyle Shanahan reminds me a little bit of Andy Reid in his Philadelphia tenure, right? Super successful, got to the Super Bowl, NFC Championship every year, couldn't get it done. That didn't make him less of a coach. He went somewhere else and he got Patrick Mahomes, and the rest is history. So the fact that Kyle, if you count Atlanta, has gotten here 3 times without that sort of quarterback play, or maybe even top 10 quarterback play. Now you could argue Brock Purdy is that now, but it's really impressive just to even get here. I'm impressed by that. But because I know the significance of how hard it is to do that. But at the same time, you know, the questions persist about, can you build a roster that will, you know, fight through some hiccups and, you know, lean on their experience and their resolve and resilience to get it done. You know, has he shown that at the highest level yet? Probably not, and this is the time.
It was the big talking point this offseason, or one of the big talking points this offseason, running back value. Guys like Jonathan Taylor asking for his money, Saquon asking for his money. You see Christian McCaffrey win Offensive Player of the Year last year. His team's in the Super Bowl. Is Christian an example of running back value, or is he the exception?
He's probably the exception. He was just hurt those 2 years, so nobody knew it when he had signed that big contract. But he is a little different just because of all he can do.
Yeah, it's versatility.
Every coach I've ever talked to that's worked with him, they say he's literally the perfect football player, taken out of a lab. Like, that's what you would want it to look like. You know, he does everything, works extremely hard. Great character, versatile. So as long as he's healthy, he's the best. And I don't really think there's any doubt right now. And I just don't see anybody getting that kind of contract right now. You know, Saquon was hurt all year on his ankle and still played well and fought through it and gave them a chance. So, you know, he deserves a big contract, but I just, you know, he's been in the league 6 years now and the window closes.
Talking to Jeremy Fowler, ESPN NFL senior reporter. Jeremy, I feel like we are at a crossroads with the wide receiver position, right? They're getting paid a lot of money and they deserve it, but it's so unique how nowadays anybody can be a wide receiver in terms of different sizes, shapes. If you got speed, whatever you can do, they'll find a spot for you. Do you think that wide receivers will continue to get paid at this premium? Or let's say a Marvin Harrison Jr. Pops. It just feels like every season, every draft, there are more wide receivers coming in. Could it turn into not the running back position, but something similar to where we got Brandon Aiyuk coming up here for the Niners? Is Brandon Aiyuk basically, I feel like he's the line. Do we pay a guy like that? Or can we find a Brandon Aiyuk, a cheaper Brandon Aiyuk in the draft?
Yeah, you know, it is so circumstantial and depending on the player that it is hard to put a blanket statement on that because you still have things in tiers, right? Like on paper, you could say, okay, if a wide receiver class is deep every year in the draft, then it's going to be a saturated field in free agency and you're just not going to need to pay him. But, you know, if you're like a top 10 guy, like look at Mike Evans this year, right? Like he's 30 plus years old. Every down you get the safety to roll over. You know, I really think it depends on what you dictate from the defense. If you have 2 or even 3 defenders on you a lot of the time, that's worth $25 to $30 million a year. Like it just is. I don't care who you are. I don't care what is in the draft. Like if you have that, it's worth a lot of money. And Tyreek is worth that for that reason. So Brandon Aiyuk, I don't know. I mean, he's very good. He's gotten better. He's great after the catch. Could he be a number 1 somewhere else? Yeah. And is he a number 1 with St. Fran? Probably. So you got to weigh how far you're willing to go with that financially. I think they'll try. They've paid their good players, you know. Yeah. And so they'll probably try to do that with him.
I'm curious. I think it was earlier this week. Weird stuff happening here in Vegas with Cliff Kingsbury, and it seemed like he was going to be accept a job as the Raiders OC, and then goes and takes a job in Washington. Was that just premature reporting, or did something behind the scenes happen where it did kind of fall through?
I think it was just like a lot of times the way this reporting works with the coaches is, okay, if a team's identified a top target, like we want to hire this guy,
right?
It typically tends to get out, like they're working toward a deal or this and that. And so, you know, I think they wanted to hire him and he wanted to be there. It's just contractually they didn't come to an agreement. You know, I'd heard kind of right after that it was a situation where they offered him a 2-year deal. Most good coordinators with a bigger name get 3 years. So I think Washington was glad to give him 3 years. So sometimes it comes down to that.
Yeah, talking to Jeremy Fowler, ESPN NFL senior reporter. Jeremy, before we get you out of here, got to get your pick. See the big banner right here. Yeah. Niners and Brock Purdy, do they get it done, number 6? Or Patrick Mahomes, do they turn themselves into a dynasty?
Yeah, I picked San Fran, 27-24. McCaffrey's my MVP.
Okay.
I just don't feel great about it because of the defense.
Sure.
Like, I don't know what I'm looking at the last couple games, honestly. So I'm betting on them turning around. But when you have effort issues in the NFC Championship game, it's an issue.
Yeah.
So I don't feel good about it. But I feel like they're the better team, better roster. I like the Chiefs' defense better, and I like the quarterback better. So if that's going to, you know, tight ends might be a wash at this point. Kelsey, Kittle, both great. Offensive line, maybe the Chiefs a little better. But, you know, San Fran just packs more punch. They have more star power, more players that could change the game. So I'm going to go to that, but I don't know. The defense has to show me more.
Yeah, you are in the minority, it seems like. I mean, we're seeing stuff on social media, everybody that we've had, but hopefully the Niners can get it done. Jeremy Fowler. Jeremy, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks,
we will talk to you again soon. Enjoy the rest of your time in Vegas.
For sure. Thanks, guys.
All right, you got to get to a break. When we get back, more Stiles and Watkins live from Las Vegas. Thanks to Jiffy Lube, Sactown Sports.